A young waitress from a small town in Oregon vanished during her late-night shift, mysteriously disappearing without a trace. But 3 years later, her mother returns to the same restaurant, and what she finds floating in her bowl makes her gasp. The fog rolled in from the harbor, blanketing Haven Ridge, Oregon, in its familiar gray embrace. Like most mornings in this small coastal town of under 10,000 residents, the mist clung to the weathered buildings, softening the edges of the world. The early morning fishermen were already at work, their silhouettes barely visible against the glittering water. Haven Ridge was known for these foggy morning harbor views as much as for its tightly knit community. Everyone knew everyone, which made the unsolved disappearance of Mia Ross 3 years ago all the more haunting. Crossroads. Bistro stood at the edge of the harbor, a converted general store now transformed into one of the town's most upscale dining establishments. Its weathered exterior maintained the charm of the original structure, while the interior boasted elegant table settings, polished wood floors, and an open kitchen that allowed diners to witness the culinary artistry firsthand. At 6:15 a.m., Evelyn Ross sat at a corner table in the still-closed restaurant. Golden sunlight was just beginning to creep through the wooden blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. The 42-year-old mother's auburn hair, the same vibrant shade her daughter had inherited, was pulled back in a loose ponytail. Dark circles beneath her eyes testified to another night with little sleep. Across from her sat Nathan Cross, her brother-in-law and owner of the restaurant. Though not yet dressed in his chef's whites, Nathan had an intensity about him that never seemed to dim, even in casual clothes. His broad shoulders were hunched over the table as they examined the contents spread before them. "The postmark is from Honolulu," Evelyn said, tapping the envelope with her fingernail. "No return address, just like all the others." Between them lay a brown folder containing old case photos, newspaper clippings, and CCTV stills from the night Mia disappeared. An open notebook with Evelyn's handwriting, pages filled with timelines, locations, and names, sat beside a stack of printed emails from supposed witnesses. The latest addition to their collection was the letter that had arrived at Evelyn's house 3 days ago. "I don't know, Ev," Nathan sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "We've chased down so many of these leads already." Evelyn read from the letter again. "I saw your daughter working at a cafe in Waikiki last Tuesday. Same red hair, same smile. She called herself May, but I knew it was her from the missing posters." She looked up at Nathan. "The details feel different this time, more specific." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "Let me see the photo they sent again." Evelyn slid a blurry snapshot across the table. "The quality is terrible, but there's something about the way she's standing." "Could be anyone with red hair," Nathan said gently. "But I agree. It's worth looking into." Evelyn appreciated his caution. Since Mia had vanished during her late-night shift at Nathan's restaurant 3 years ago, he had been Evelyn's rock. The official investigation had determined that Mia had left the restaurant after her shift ended, confirmed by both Nathan's testimony and a nearby CCTV camera that captured her walking out the front door at 2:17 a.m. But what happened after that remained a mystery that had consumed Evelyn's every waking moment. "If you decide to go to Hawaii, I'm coming with you," Nathan said firmly. "It's too dangerous for you to go alone." "Thank you," Evelyn said, squeezing his hand. "I'll think about it more today. I just can't ignore any possibility, no matter how small." The kitchen door swung open, and the morning staff began arriving. Cooks in white jackets nodded respectfully to Evelyn and Nathan as they began their prep work, the rhythmic sound of chopping soon filling the air. "I should let you get to work," Evelyn said, beginning to gather the documents. "No, stay," Nathan insisted. "It's been too long since you've been here. Let me make you breakfast." His smile was warm, genuine. "I've changed some menu items over the years. You can be my taste tester for today's soup." Evelyn hesitated, her eyes drifting to the familiar blue-striped aprons hanging by the kitchen door, the same style Mia had worn during her shifts. "I haven't been able to bring myself to eat here since, well, you know." "I understand," Nathan said softly. "But maybe it's time. Part of healing is reclaiming the places that hold memories." "Healing doesn't mean giving up," Evelyn said quickly, a defensive edge to her voice. "Of course not," Nathan assured her. "I want to find her just as much as you do. She's family." He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Let me get you some coffee while you decide." As he disappeared into the kitchen, Evelyn found herself surveying the restaurant. The last time she'd been here as a guest was for Mia's 18th birthday, just 2 months before her disappearance. They'd sat at the table by the window, Mia glowing with excitement about starting college in the fall, her future bright and limitless. Now those memories felt like they belonged to someone else's life. Nathan returned with 2 steaming mugs. "Black, no sugar, right?" Evelyn nodded, grateful for the warmth between her palms. "You remembered." "Some things don't change," he said, sitting down again. "So, breakfast?" "The chef's making a special albondiga soup today, green broth instead of red base, with meatballs that have been simmering for 8 hours. "All right, I'll be your tester," Evelyn conceded. "I should eat something anyway." Nathan smiled and stood again. "Let me help them get started on it. Won't be long." As he headed toward the kitchen, Evelyn reopened her laptop to check her email. Nothing new, no responses from the private investigator she'd hired last month, no updates from the online forums where she regularly posted about Mia. A few minutes later, the sound of a truck outside the restaurant caught her attention. Nathan emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "I need to take in a delivery from the street," he said, pulling off his apron. "Food supplies just arrived." As he reached the front door, a voice called out from the kitchen. "Nathan!" It was his head cook, Marco. "The commercial oven is busted again. Where's that old one we used last time?" The harbor's morning ship horn blared just then, drowning out Marco's words. Nathan turned back, cupping his ear. "I can't hear you. Just wait." "He's asking about your old oven," Evelyn called out. "The commercial one isn't working." Marco nodded emphatically. "Yeah, we need the backup before the maintenance guy can come." "Oh," Evelyn said, remembering. "Are you talking about my old oven, the one Nathan borrowed when his broke before?" "That's the one," Marco confirmed. "I think Nathan used to keep those old appliances in the basement supply room," Evelyn said. "Have you checked there?" Marco shook his head. "I'll take a look." He disappeared down the stairs to the basement. Nathan, still at the door, called out, "I'll be right back," before stepping outside to deal with the delivery. 5 minutes passed before Marco returned, a frown creasing his forehead. "I can't find it anywhere down there." Curious, Evelyn set down her coffee. "That's strange. Let me help you look. It's been a while since I've been down there, but I remember what it looks like." Together they descended the stairs to the dimly lit basement. The concrete floor was cold, and the air smelled of damp earth and cleaning supplies. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with restaurant supplies, extra plates, tablecloths, and cleaning products. "We used to keep it over here," Evelyn said, leading Marco to a corner. But where she expected to see her old stainless steel oven, there was only an empty space. "Maybe he moved it," Marco suggested. Evelyn thought for a moment. "Let's check the storage room. He might have moved it there." They crossed to a heavy door on the far wall. Evelyn tried the handle, but it was locked. "This room's always locked," Marco explained. "Only Nathan has the key. It's where he keeps all the unused stuff and seasonal decorations." Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Nathan's arrival. "What are you two looking for?" he asked, eyes darting between them. "Your old oven," Marco replied. "My old oven?" Evelyn clarified. "Is it in the storage room?" Nathan ran a hand through his hair, his expression unreadable. "Actually, I can't remember where I put that thing. Might be in there, might be at my house." He patted his pockets. "And I don't have the key with me today. Left it at home." Evelyn found it odd that Nathan couldn't remember where he'd placed something as substantial as an oven, but she didn't press the issue. After all, it had been years since she'd seen it herself. "Let's head back upstairs and talk," Nathan suggested, "and we should get your breakfast going too." Back in the restaurant's main dining area, Marco turned to Nathan with a concerned expression. "So what should we do about the oven?" "We're 6 months past the maintenance date on the commercial one, and now it's completely dead." "We'll figure something out," Nathan said dismissively. Evelyn, sensing his frustration, offered, "I don't mind fetching the key from your house, Nathan. If you're needed in the kitchen, just tell me where you keep it, and I'll get it for you." Nathan's reaction was immediate and firm. No need for that. I'll walk home and get it myself. It's only 3 blocks from here." He turned to Marco. "In the meantime, prepare Evelyn's breakfast. Don't wait for me." As Nathan hurried out the door, Evelyn returned to her table and reopened her laptop. She clicked through photographs of Mia, searching for any details she might have missed in the thousands of times she'd examined them before. Each image was a reminder of what had been stolen: Mia's graduation day, her dance recitals, candid moments of laughter captured in the family kitchen. About 10 minutes later, a young waitress approached with a laden tray. She had the same blue-striped apron that Mia used to wear, and for a painful moment, Evelyn's heart skipped a beat at the familiar sight. "Good morning, ma'am," the waitress said brightly. "I have your breakfast here." She set down a complete meal with practiced efficiency. "Today we have our special green broth albondiga soup. The broth has been simmering for 8 hours. Alongside that is our fish of the day, broiled locally caught halibut that Chef Marco purchased from the harbor market this morning. And to complete your meal, egg toast with herb butter." "Thank you," Evelyn said, forcing a smile despite the ache in her chest. She started with the toast, savoring the crunch and the rich, buttery flavor. The fish was perfectly cooked, flaking apart at the touch of her fork. Finally, she turned to the soup, admiring the vibrant green color flecked with herbs. The first spoonful was flavorful: garlic, cilantro, and the rich taste of slow-cooked broth. She took another spoonful, this time dipping deeper to capture one of the meatballs from the bottom of the bowl. As she raised the spoon to her lips, something caught her eye: a thick clump of red-orange hair resting next to the meatball, its auburn color startlingly familiar against the green broth. Evelyn gasped, her hand trembling slightly. She stirred the soup again, watching as more strands of hair emerged from the bottom of the bowl. Her first instinct was to call the cook and report the unappetizing find. But as her gaze drifted to her laptop screen, where Mia's smiling face looked back at her, a chilling realization dawned. The hair in her bowl was identical to Mia's, the same distinctive shade of auburn that Evelyn herself had passed down to her daughter. How could this be possible? No one in the restaurant had hair that color. Her mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Was someone playing a cruel joke? Or was it something far worse? Through the window, she saw Nathan approaching the restaurant. Making a split-second decision, Evelyn grabbed a thick layer of napkins from the table, carefully lifted the clump of hair from her soup, and wrapped it securely before slipping it into her coat pocket. The bell above the door jingled as Nathan returned. "Sorry about that," he said, making his way to her table. "How's the food? Everything taste all right?" Evelyn forced her face into a neutral expression. "The toast and fish are excellent," she said carefully. "But the soup is a bit too salty for my taste." "Let me try," Nathan said, reaching for her spoon. He dipped it into the bowl and brought it to his lips, slurping the broth. As he did, several strands of loose red hair clung to the spoon. Evelyn watched him intently, studying his reaction. Nathan plucked the hairs from the spoon with his fingers, examined them briefly, then dropped them onto the floor with a flick of his wrist. "I'm so sorry about that, Evelyn," he said, frowning. "This is completely unacceptable. I'll need to speak with the kitchen staff immediately." Before he could walk away, Evelyn asked, "Did you find the key?" Nathan paused, seeming momentarily confused. "The key?" "To the storage room," Evelyn prompted. "For the oven." "Oh, yes, I did," he said after a beat. "Don't worry about the soup," Evelyn said quickly. "It might just be my taste buds. I had black coffee earlier, and it sometimes makes everything taste different." She gestured toward the basement door. "Why don't we take a look at that old oven? After all these years, I'm curious if it's still in working condition. It would be remarkable if it still functions after so long." Nathan's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'll deal with it later with Marco," he said. "It's boxed up and probably buried under other boxes. That room is very dusty and packed with stuff. Not worth getting your clothes dirty over an old appliance." "I don't mind a little dust," Evelyn persisted. "Really, it's fine," Nathan said, more firmly this time. "Let me handle it. You enjoy your breakfast, or what's left of it anyway." He forced a laugh that didn't reach his eyes before heading to the kitchen. Through the open kitchen doorway, Evelyn watched as Nathan spoke animatedly with Marco, gesturing toward the large soup pot. He stirred it with a ladle, his movements sharp with anger. Then he turned to the waitress who had served Evelyn, his expression thunderous as he questioned her. The young woman looked genuinely confused and distressed, shaking her head vehemently. Evelyn had seen Nathan angry before, most memorably at a family dinner years ago when her late husband James had made a comment about Nathan's failed marriage. Nathan had snapped, lunging across the table to strike James in the face. The incident had created a rift between the brothers that had never fully healed before James's death. Now, watching Nathan's familiar anger resurface, a chill ran down Evelyn's spine. She touched her coat pocket, feeling the damp tissue inside. The pieces didn't fit together logically. No waitress or cook would intentionally put hair in a customer's soup. And since no one in the restaurant had that distinctive auburn color, a terrible thought began to form in Evelyn's mind. What if Mia hadn't disappeared that night? What if she had never left the restaurant at all? Could she somehow be here, hidden away in that locked storage room that Nathan so clearly didn't want anyone to enter? It seemed impossible, absurd even. And yet the hair in her soup was undeniably real. Evelyn's heart pounded as she sat frozen in her chair, trying to process the implications of what she'd found. If her suspicions were correct, every minute she spent sitting here was another minute her daughter remained in danger. But if she was wrong, she risked destroying her relationship with Nathan, the only family she had left who still actively helped her search for Mia. Through the kitchen window, she could see Nathan still berating his staff, his back to her. Evelyn's hands trembled as she quickly gathered her laptop and documents from the dining table. She needed to get to the police station immediately, but calling ahead would be useless. Who would believe such a bizarre story over the phone? She needed to show them the evidence in person. Just as she slipped the last folder into her bag, Nathan emerged from the kitchen. "You're leaving?" he asked, surprise evident in his voice. "Yes, I need to get home," Evelyn replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "So soon? You've hardly touched your breakfast." Nathan gestured to the mostly full plate of fish and half-eaten toast. "I just remembered I need to get ready for work," Evelyn improvised, avoiding his gaze as she zipped her bag closed. Nathan frowned. "This is Sunday, Evelyn. You don't work on Sundays." "Oh?" Evelyn faltered, mentally cursing her carelessness. "Right. So silly of me. I'm getting old and forgetful," she said with a forced laugh. "Actually, I promised to go to church with my friend Caroline. She's been suggesting it for months, said it might help me deal with the loss." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she plastered on a smile. "Church?" Nathan repeated, sounding skeptical. "That's new." Yes, well, I'm trying new things. Evelyn slung her bag over her shoulder and stepped toward the door. Thank you for breakfast. I'll call you later about that Hawaii lead. Before Nathan could respond, she moved forward and gave him a quick, awkward hug, something she never normally did. I'll see you soon, she said, already pulling away and walking briskly to the exit. Evelyn, wait, Nathan called, following her. I'm sorry about the soup. I hope it didn't ruin your appetite. Lucky it was just me. Don't worry about it, she responded, without turning back, reaching for the door handle. Yeah, right, Nathan said with a short laugh. That auburn hair and green soup? Anyone would get thrown off by that. Evelyn froze momentarily, her back still to Nathan. I didn't really look at the hair color, she lied, turning to face him with what she hoped was a casual expression. I just saw something in my soup and lost my appetite. Nathan studied her face, and for a moment Evelyn feared he could see right through her. Are you sure you need to go? He asked quietly. Yes, absolutely. I'm already running late. She stepped outside into the morning air, feeling his eyes on her back as she hurried to her car. Once inside the vehicle, she allowed herself a deep, shaky breath before starting the engine. In her rearview mirror, she could see Nathan still standing in the doorway of the restaurant, watching her. She waved, forcing a smile, then pulled away from the curb. The town was quiet at 7 a.m. on a Sunday, most residents either still asleep or preparing for church services. Evelyn drove well under the speed limit, afraid that her shaking hands might cause an accident if she went any faster. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. Could Nathan, the man who had stood by her side during the worst years of her life, who had helped organize search parties and put up posters, really have been responsible for Mia's disappearance? It seemed impossible, and yet the hair in her soup and Nathan's strange behavior about the storage room painted a disturbing picture. When she reached the police station, Evelyn parked haphazardly and rushed inside, clutching her coat pocket where the damp tissue still held the clump of hair. I need to speak with Detective Morgan, she told the officer at the front desk. It's about my daughter's case, Mia Ross. The officer, a young man Evelyn didn't recognize, checked his computer. Detective Morgan isn't in yet, ma'am. Can I help you with something? Please, it's urgent, Evelyn insisted. I have new evidence. The officer's expression softened with recognition. Everyone in Haven Ridge knew about the Ross case. It was the most notorious unsolved disappearance in the town's history. Let me get Officer Daniels for you. He worked on your daughter's case initially. A few minutes later, Officer Daniels appeared, his familiar weathered face creased with concern. Evelyn, what's going on? Do you have new information about Mia? Yes, she said, pulling the tissue-wrapped hair from her pocket. She carefully unwrapped it on the counter, revealing the damp auburn strands. I found this in my soup at Crossroads Bistro this morning, Nathan's restaurant. It's Mia's hair, I'm sure of it. Daniels looked at the clump of hair, then back at Evelyn with confusion. You found this in your soup? Yes, and I think Nathan, my brother-in-law, has been keeping Mia locked in the storage room at his restaurant all this time. The words sounded absurd even to her own ears, but Evelyn pressed on. He wouldn't let me see inside the room, kept making excuses about not having the key. And when I mentioned the hair in my soup, he became very nervous. Daniels exchanged a glance with the younger officer, whose expression remained carefully neutral. Evelyn, Daniels began gently, if what you're suggesting is true, if your daughter is being held in that storage room, how would her hair end up in your soup? I don't know exactly, Evelyn admitted, but no one in that restaurant has hair this color. It has to be Mia's. Another officer had joined them, listening to the exchange. He leaned over and whispered something to Daniels, who nodded slightly. Evelyn, Daniels said, his tone careful, this hair looks very similar to your own. Are you absolutely certain it's not yours? What? No, it's not mine, she insisted, anger flaring. Do you think I'm making this up? That I put my own hair in soup and brought it here as some kind of joke?" "Of course not," Daniels said quickly. "But you have to understand how this sounds. You're accusing your brother-in-law, a respected business owner who has actively helped search for Mia, of kidnapping and imprisoning your daughter for 3 years. That's an extraordinary claim that requires substantial evidence." "The hair is the evidence!" Evelyn's voice rose, drawing the attention of others in the station. "Please, just come to the restaurant with me. Check the storage room. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and never bother you again." Daniels considered her for a long moment, then sighed. "All right, Evelyn, we'll check the restaurant. But I want you to be prepared. This could potentially damage your relationship with your brother-in-law if nothing is found." "I understand," Evelyn said firmly. "But if there's even a chance that Mia is there, we have to look. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try." Daniels nodded and turned to the younger officer. "Peterson, you're with me. Let's go check out Crossroads Bistro." As they walked to the patrol car, Evelyn felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She was finally being taken seriously, but what would they find at the restaurant? And if she was wrong, if this was all a terrible misunderstanding, how would she face Nathan again? But the alternative, ignoring her instincts and potentially leaving Mia in danger, was unthinkable. When they returned to Crossroads Bistro, the restaurant was still closed, the sign on the door indicating an 11 o'clock opening. A hostess greeted them with a polished smile that briefly faltered at the sight of the police uniforms. "We're looking for Nathan Cross," Officer Daniels said, showing his badge. The hostess shook her head. "Mr. Cross isn't here right now. He left about 20 minutes ago." Evelyn felt a wave of panic. "I was just here, and he didn't mention having any other plans. Did he say where he was going?" "No, ma'am, he didn't," the hostess replied, her eyes darting nervously between Evelyn and the officers. "Is everything okay?" "We just need to speak with him," Daniels said neutrally. "Is Marco here, the head chef?" The hostess nodded and went to fetch Marco from the kitchen. The other restaurant staff had begun to notice the police presence, hushed conversations, and curious glances spreading through the dining room. Marco emerged, wiping his hands on a towel, his expression guarded. "Officers, can I help you?" "We need to check the premises," Daniels explained. "Specifically, the storage room in the basement. This woman believes her daughter might be being kept there." Shock flickered across Marco's face as he turned to Evelyn. "Ms. Ross, what are you talking about? You were there this morning, with me and Mr. Cross." "Please, just let us check, Marco," Evelyn pleaded. "It's about the hair in the soup. It matches Mia's. Nathan wouldn't open that room earlier. He kept making excuses." Marco hesitated. "Actually, he already unlocked the door, but I think we should call Mr. Cross before doing anything else." "We already tried," Officer Peterson said. "He's not answering his phone." "Maybe he's driving," Marco suggested. "He mentioned needing to pick up some equipment after the oven broke down." Daniels assessed the situation quickly. "We have reason to believe this may be an emergency situation. We're going to need to check that room immediately." Marco nodded reluctantly. "Follow me." They made their way through the crowded restaurant to the basement door, drawing even more attention. Evelyn could feel the stairs burning into her back as she descended the stairs behind the officers. The basement was exactly as she'd seen it earlier that morning, dimly lit and musty. Marco led them to the storage room door, which to Evelyn's surprise now stood slightly ajar. "It's open," she whispered, hope and dread mingling in her chest. Daniels pushed the door fully open and stepped inside, his hand resting on his holster. Peterson followed, while Evelyn and Marco waited in the doorway. The storage room was cluttered with boxes, old equipment, and seasonal decorations, exactly as Nathan had described. Dust covered most surfaces, undisturbed except for a few recent footprints. There was no sign of anyone living there, no evidence of habitation whatsoever. "There's nothing here," Peterson said after a thorough check. "No one's been kept in this room." Evelyn pushed past them, her eyes frantically scanning every corner. "That can't be right," she insisted, moving boxes aside. "He must have moved her. Check for hidden doors or compartments." The officers exchanged looks, but humored her, checking the walls and floor for any signs of concealment. After several minutes, they found nothing. "Evelyn," Daniels said gently, "there's no one here?" She stood in the center of the dusty room, disbelief and confusion washing over her. But the hair and Nathan's behavior, it all pointed to— "Let's go back upstairs," Daniel suggested, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We need to talk to the staff." Back in the main restaurant, now buzzing with whispers about the police presence, Daniels gathered the available employees. "Did anyone see Mr. Cross bring a young woman through here today, or take someone down to the basement?" The waitstaff and kitchen employees all shook their heads, looking bewildered by the question. "What about the old oven?" Evelyn asked Marco suddenly. "Did Nathan find it?" "Yes," Marco confirmed. "He opened the storage room and got the oven for me, but it wasn't working anymore. He went out to buy an emergency replacement and to call for maintenance to fix our commercial one." "Did you see him open the storage room?" Daniels asked. Marco shook his head. "No, I was in the kitchen. He just brought me the oven, and we tried it out, and it was broken." "But you didn't see a young woman pass by? Someone with auburn hair like Miss Ross here?" Peterson pressed. "No, sir," Marco said firmly. "I didn't see anyone like that." The questioning continued with the other staff members, all of whom gave the same answer. No one had seen Nathan with a young woman, and no one had seen anyone who matched Mia's description. Daniels pulled Evelyn aside, his expression sympathetic but firm. "Evelyn, there's nothing here. No evidence to suggest your daughter was ever kept in that storage room." "But the hair?" "Could have fallen into the soup any number of ways," Daniels finished for her. "Maybe it was yours. Maybe it came from someone who prepared the food. Maybe it was even planted by someone playing a cruel joke. But there's nothing here that would justify us continuing this investigation." Evelyn felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "I'm sorry," Daniels continued, lowering his voice. "I know how difficult these past years have been for you, but we can't keep chasing every lead without substantive evidence. And I have to warn you, making accusations like this against your brother-in-law could have serious consequences if they're unfounded." The implied threat was clear. Stop pursuing this or risk legal action. "I know what I saw," Evelyn said weakly, but doubt had begun to creep in. "I just thought—" "I understand," Daniels said, his tone softening. "But for now, I think it's best if you go home and get some rest. We'll keep your daughter's case open, as always, and follow up on any credible leads that come in." As the officers prepared to leave, Evelyn remained rooted to the spot, watching the restaurant return to its normal Sunday routine. The waitresses in their blue-striped aprons, the same aprons Mia had worn, moved efficiently between tables. The cooks called out for preparations in the kitchen. Everything seemed so normal, so ordinary. And yet something still felt wrong. The hair in her soup, Nathan's odd behavior, his immediate absence. These weren't things she could easily dismiss. After the police left, Evelyn found herself alone in the dining area, ignored by the busy staff who clearly viewed her with a mixture of pity and suspicion after the scene she'd caused. Defeated but not deterred, Evelyn made her way back to the basement. If the police couldn't find anything suspicious, maybe she could. The basement was quiet now, the earlier commotion forgotten. Evelyn returned to the storage room, which remained unlocked after the police search. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her, taking a moment to let her eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through a single small window near the ceiling. This time, without the pressure of the police watching, she took her time examining every detail. She moved boxes methodically, running her hands along the walls, looking for anything unusual. As she worked her way around the room, she noticed something she'd missed earlier. A section of the floor near the far wall had deep scratches on it, as if something heavy had been dragged repeatedly across the concrete. Following the direction of the scratches, she examined the wall and realized one section appeared darker than the surrounding areas, as if something or someone had leaned against it for a prolonged period. Evelyn took pictures of the scratches and the discolored wall with her phone. It wasn't definitive evidence, but it was something concrete to support her suspicions. Continuing her search, she began moving more boxes, most of them surprisingly light or completely empty. Behind a stack of them, partially hidden from view, she discovered something unexpected. A small food elevator built into the wall, the kind used in older restaurants to transport dishes between floors. She slid open the small door and peered inside. The elevator shaft connected to the kitchen upstairs. If Mia had been kept in this room, could she have somehow used this dumbwaiter to place her hair in the soup? It seemed far-fetched, but no more so than any other explanation for what Evelyn had found in her bowl. Leaving the storage room, she explored the rest of the basement, checking every corner and closet. In a far corner, she noticed a metal storage cabinet she hadn't seen during her earlier visit. One of the drawers wasn't fully closed, catching her attention. Cautiously, she pulled it open and froze at what she found: an empty gun box. The foam interior was molded to hold a handgun, which was currently missing. This discovery sent a chill down Evelyn's spine. Why would Nathan keep a gun in the restaurant basement, and more importantly, where was it now? The pieces were starting to fit together in a horrifying way. If Nathan had been keeping Mia prisoner and realized Evelyn was growing suspicious, he might have moved her and taken the gun with him. With renewed urgency, Evelyn rushed back upstairs, clutching the empty gun box. She needed to confront the staff again, and this time she had physical evidence to support her concerns. Evelyn called out to Marco and the other staff members, her voice rising above the dining room chatter. "Everyone, please, I need your attention." The restaurant fell silent, staff turning to stare at the distraught woman holding an empty gun box. "I found this in the basement," Evelyn said, her voice shaking. "Nathan has a gun, and I believe my daughter is in danger. Please, if anyone saw anything this morning, anything at all, you need to tell me now." The silence stretched uncomfortably until Marco stepped forward again. "Ms. Ross, as we've already said, no one saw him with a woman. The police have asked you to leave, and now you're interfering with our work. The restaurant opens in just a few hours." "Not until someone tells me the truth," Evelyn insisted, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter's hair was in that soup. I know it was hers. She could be in that room for years, and now Nathan has moved her, and he has a gun." The staff began whispering among themselves. Marco moved closer, reaching for the gun box, but Evelyn pulled it away. "Please," she begged, looking at each staff member's face. "If you know something, anything, tell me now. She could be dying." The silence was broken by a small movement from the corner of the room. A young woman Evelyn hadn't noticed before stepped forward, a kitchen hand with a dish towel in her hands. She made a series of quick gestures with her hands, her expression solemn. "Michelle's trying to tell you something," one of the waitresses said, moving to the young woman's side. "She's mute, but she works in our kitchen washing dishes." Michelle signed again, more deliberately this time. "She says," the waitress translated, her voice faltering, "she says she saw Nathan take a woman out of the room this morning. He rolled her underneath the basement floor. Michelle was checking the water pump because the pressure dropped while she was washing dishes. Nathan never saw her." A collective gasp went through the room. Michelle continued signing, her hands moving rapidly now. "She says she saw him leave through the front door, then walk around to the side of the restaurant. A few minutes later, his car left, heading toward the quiet part of the harbor." Evelyn's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Ask her if the woman had red hair. Auburn, like mine." The question was translated, and Michelle nodded emphatically, then made another sign. "There's more. She wants to apologize for being too afraid to speak to the police because of her condition," the waitress said. "But—" Thank you so much, but I'm afraid there's no time," Evelyn interrupted. "We'll talk more. I need to get to my daughter now. She could be in danger." She turned to Marco. "Call the police. Tell them everything Michelle saw. Tell them to meet me at the harbor." Without waiting for a response, Evelyn rushed out the door, the empty gun box still clutched in her hands and the thick clump of hair still in her coat pocket. As she ran down the street toward the harbor, she pulled out her phone and dialed Detective Morgan's number, praying he would answer this time. Evelyn ran faster than she had in years, her lungs burning and legs aching as she sprinted toward the harbor. The quiet section Michelle had described was on the far end, away from the tourist boats and fishing vessels where abandoned warehouses and private docks lined the waterfront. With her phone pressed to her ear, she gasped out the situation to Detective Morgan as she ran. "He has her, took her from the restaurant, heading to the quiet part of the harbor. He has a gun." "Evelyn, slow down," Morgan's voice came through the speaker. "Who has who? What gun?" "Nathan," she cried. "He has Mia. A witness saw him take her from the restaurant this morning. Please, send everyone you can to the harbor." "Stay where you are," Morgan instructed firmly. "I'll gather a team and meet you. Do not approach Nathan if you see him. He could be dangerous." "I can't wait," Evelyn panted. "He might kill her." Before Morgan could respond, Evelyn ended the call and pushed herself to run faster, ignoring the pain shooting through her body. As she approached the harbor, the sounds of seagulls and distant boat engines filled the air. The fog had lifted, revealing a clear blue sky that seemed to mock the darkness of the situation unfolding beneath it. Evelyn slowed to catch her breath, scanning the area for any sign of Nathan or his car. The quiet section of the harbor was deserted at this hour, most of the warehouses shut down for the weekend. Then she spotted it. Nathan's black sedan parked at a curb near one of the private docks. Her heart hammering, Evelyn crept closer, staying hidden behind stacked crates and equipment. She searched for any sign of movement on the nearby dock, but saw nothing. Had she arrived too late? Had Nathan already? She couldn't finish the thought. Refusing to believe the worst, Evelyn moved toward the car, using whatever cover she could find. As she approached, movement caught her eye. Nathan walking alone from the direction of the dock back toward his car. He was alone. A noticeable bulge at his waist looked unmistakably like a gun. Without thinking, Evelyn stepped into his path. "Where is she?" she demanded, her voice strong despite her fear. Nathan froze, genuine surprise registering on his face before it was quickly replaced with confusion. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" "Don't pretend," she said, stepping closer. "I know everything. Your staff told me they saw you take her from the restaurant this morning. Where is my daughter?" Nathan's expression shifted to concern. "You're not making any sense. What staff? Take who?" "Stop lying!" Evelyn shouted, her patience snapping. "Michelle saw you. She told everyone what you did. The police are on their way right now." A flicker of something, recognition or fear, Evelyn couldn't tell, crossed Nathan's face. "Michelle? The mute girl?" He shook his head slowly. "Evelyn, you're not well. This obsession with finding Mia has gone too far. Let me call someone for you." "Don't you dare!" Evelyn pushed him hard, surprising both of them with her strength. "I know you kidnapped her. I know you've been keeping her in that storage room. Where is she now? What have you done with her?" Nathan stumbled back a step, his demeanor changing completely. The mask of concern fell away, replaced by cold calculation. "It's too late now," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I gave her plenty of time to love me, but she never did. So it's the ocean for her." The words hit Evelyn like a physical blow. "No," she whispered, horror washing over her. "You can't have—" I protected her, Nathan continued, as if explaining something simple to a child. I gave her everything. She could have had a good life with me. We were going to leave together, start over somewhere new, but she never stopped crying. Never a thought for everything I'd done for her. You took her and locked her in that room. How do you expect— Evelyn's voice caught as she realized this wasn't the time for words. Fueled by desperation, she tried to push past him toward the dock. She might still be alive. I have to reach her. Nathan grabbed her arm, his fingers digging painfully into her flesh. It's over, Evelyn. Accept it, just like you should have accepted that James was gone when he died. His eyes burned with a hatred she'd never seen before. You always had everything. James's love, Mia's devotion. What did I have? Nothing. My brother always looked down on me, and you never even saw me. Let me go. Evelyn struggled against his grip, tears streaming down her face. Please, Nathan, she's your niece. She was supposed to be more than that, he snarled, his grip tightening. Don't make me draw my gun. I don't like having to use it. The sound of an approaching car broke through their struggle. Nathan's head snapped up, momentarily distracted. Evelyn seized the opportunity, twisting free from his grasp and bolting toward the dock. Behind her, she heard car doors slam and shouts. The restaurant staff had arrived, followed closely by another vehicle that Evelyn desperately hoped contained the police. She didn't look back, focusing only on reaching the end of the dock where she could see something in the water, a dark shape just below the surface. Time seemed to slow as Evelyn reached the edge. Without hesitation, she kicked off her shoes and jumped into the cold harbor waters. The shock of the temperature knocked the breath from her lungs, but she forced herself to open her eyes in the murky water. There, a few feet below her, was Mia, her beautiful daughter, bound and weighted to the bottom of the harbor, her auburn hair floating around her face like a halo. Evelyn swam down, her lungs already burning for air. She reached Mia and tugged frantically at the ropes securing her to what looked like a sack of weights, but the knots were too tight, and she lacked the strength to break them. Her vision beginning to blur from lack of oxygen, Evelyn refused to let go. If she couldn't save Mia, she would die trying. Just as darkness began to creep in at the edges of her consciousness, another figure plunged into the water beside her. Strong hands moved hers aside, and she saw the glint of a knife cutting through the ropes. Together, they freed Mia from the weights and pushed toward the surface. Breaking through into the air, Evelyn gasped desperately, helping to keep Mia's limp form afloat as her rescuer, a man in a police uniform, swam them both toward the dock where many hands reached down to help. They were pulled from the water onto the wooden planks of the dock. Evelyn's eyes were blurred with water and tears, but she could make out a crowd surrounding them, the restaurant staff, police officers, and curious onlookers drawn by the commotion. The officer who had jumped in after her immediately began performing CPR on Mia, whose still form lay frighteningly motionless on the dock. Evelyn coughed violently, expelling harbor water from her lungs as someone wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "Breathe, honey, breathe," she whispered, crawling closer to Mia despite her own weakness. "Please, baby, breathe." The officer continued compressions, counting steadily, refusing to give up even as the minutes stretched on with no response. Evelyn barely registered the noise surrounding her, the rising wail of approaching sirens, the shouts of officers flooding the scene, Nathan's angry voice echoing as he was searched, disarmed, handcuffed, and led toward a waiting police car. All that mattered was Mia's next breath. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Mia's body convulsed suddenly, water spewing from her mouth as she gasped raggedly for air. The officer turned her onto her side, allowing her to expel more water. "She's breathing!" someone shouted, and a cheer went up from the gathered crowd. Tears of relief flowing freely, Evelyn reached for her daughter's hand, squeezing it gently. Mia's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening as they found Evelyn's face. "Mom," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm here, baby," Evelyn sobbed, leaning close. "I found you. You're safe now." Paramedics arrived, gently moving Evelyn aside to tend to Mia. They wrapped her in thermal blankets and secured her to a stretcher, checking her vitals as they prepared to move her to the ambulance. Evelyn stood on shaky legs, determined to stay with her daughter. As she turned to follow the stretcher, she came face to face with the officer who had jumped in after her, the one who had cut Mia free and performed CPR. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You saved her life." "Just doing my job, ma'am," he replied with a modest nod. "You're the real hero here. You never gave up on your daughter." As paramedics tended to Mia, Evelyn saw Nathan being handcuffed by officers near the police cruiser. When he spotted Evelyn and Mia on the stretcher, his face contorted with rage and something else, a possessive, obsessive glint in his eyes. "She was always mine," Nathan shouted, straining against the officer's grip. "Mia always belonged to me. I've loved her since she was little. There's something special between us that you would never understand." Several onlookers gasped in horror at his confession, while the officers tightened their hold on him. "She couldn't love me back," he continued, his voice cracking with deranged emotion. "So I had to do this. If I couldn't have her, no one could." "That's enough," one of the officers said firmly, pushing Nathan's head down as they guided him into the back of the patrol car. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." The door slammed shut, muffling Nathan's continued ranting as the cruiser pulled away toward the police station. Turning away from him for the last time, Evelyn followed the paramedics to the waiting ambulance, her hand never leaving Mia's as they were both helped inside for the journey to the hospital. The antiseptic smell of the hospital filled Evelyn's nostrils as she sat beside Mia's bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall with each precious breath. They had been brought directly to the emergency room, where medical staff immediately began evaluating both of them. Evelyn had been treated for mild hypothermia and released with a clean bill of health, but Mia's condition was more complex. A team of doctors and nurses worked diligently, checking her vitals, drawing blood, documenting injuries, and administering medications. Detective Morgan stood at the foot of the bed, his notebook open, while a female officer positioned herself discreetly by the door. They were waiting for the doctor to finish his examination before beginning their questions. Dr. Patel, a middle-aged man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, entered the room with a tablet in hand. "Ms. Ross," he addressed Evelyn, "I have the preliminary results of your daughter's examination." Evelyn steeled herself, clasping Mia's hand tightly. "Please tell me everything." "Mia is suffering from moderate malnutrition and dehydration," Dr. Patel began, his voice clinical yet compassionate. "Her body mass index is significantly below normal parameters. We're administering fluids and nutrients intravenously to address this immediately." He swiped through several screens on his tablet. "There are extensive bruises on both ankles, consistent with prolonged restraint. The pattern and healing stages suggest that different restraint methods were used over time." He showed Evelyn an image that made her stomach churn. Mia's ankles, mottled with purple, yellow, and green bruises in varying states of healing. "These particular marks here," he continued, pointing to deep ligature marks, "are consistent with a heavy wooden device, like what you described as a stock. The newer marks are from metal restraints, likely shackles." Dr. Patel moved to the head of the bed, gently tilting Mia's face toward the light. "We've also documented tearing and scarring around the lips and corners of the mouth, consistent with frequent gagging." Evelyn choked back a sob. "And did he?" Understanding the unasked question, "Doctor." Patel shook his head. "We found no evidence of sexual assault. However, blood tests indicate prolonged exposure to sedatives and tranquilizers. In layman's terms, she's been kept in a drugged state for extended periods." "Will she recover?" Evelyn asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Physically, yes, with time and proper care, the doctor assured her. The psychological recovery will be more complex. We've requested a psychiatric evaluation once she's more stable. Mia stirred, her eyes flickering open. She seemed disoriented at first, then focused on Evelyn's face. "Mom," she murmured, "is this real? Are you really here?" "Yes, sweetheart," Evelyn said, tears flowing freely. "I'm here. You're safe now." Mia's gaze drifted to Detective Morgan and the officer by the door. Fear flashed across her face. "It's okay," Evelyn soothed. "They're here to help. They need to ask you some questions when you're ready. About Uncle Nathan." Detective Morgan stepped forward. "Hello, Mia. I'm Detective Morgan. I've been working on your case since you disappeared. We can wait if you're not feeling up to talking yet." "No," Mia said, her voice stronger than expected. "I want to tell you everything. I want him locked away forever." Morgan nodded and pulled up a chair. "Take your time. Start wherever you feel comfortable." Mia took a deep breath. "I was kept in the storage room at the restaurant. Uncle Nathan used a wooden stock to restrain both my ankles. I couldn't move more than a few feet in any direction." Her voice was flat, detached, as if she were describing something that had happened to someone else. "Just last week, he moved the wooden stock because the bruises around my ankles were getting worse. He said he didn't want me to get an infection that would complicate things, so he replaced it with leather shackles instead." Evelyn remembered the scratches she'd seen on the floor. "I noticed marks on the floor of that room," she said quietly. "That must have been from the wooden stock." "Yes," Mia confirmed, "and I leaned against the same spot on the wall for hours every day." "That's probably why it looked darker there," Evelyn added, and Mia nodded. Morgan made notes. "How did you manage to put your hair in your mother's soup?" A hint of pride crossed Mia's face. "Since he switched to the shackles, I'd been trying to pick the lock using tools I found in the room. When I heard Mom's voice this morning, I knew it might be my only chance. I managed to break the lock with a screwdriver I'd hidden." She closed her eyes, recalling the details. "There's a food elevator in the wall. It goes up to the kitchen. I climbed inside and pulled the rope to signal upstairs. When someone opened it, I saw a woman." "It was Michelle, the dishwasher," Evelyn said. Mia swallowed hard. "I grabbed a knife from the counter, cut off some of my hair, and pointed to a bowl of soup sitting there. She understood immediately and helped me, then sent me back down. I was afraid she might tell Nathan, but I was desperate." "She didn't tell him," Evelyn assured her. "She was the one who eventually told us where to find you." Relief washed over Mia's face. "I was back in the shackles by the time he returned to check on me. He seemed agitated, kept muttering about you being there. Then he saw the shackle was broken, and he was very angry. He grabbed the gun and told me we were leaving, that it wasn't safe anymore." "He drugged me before rolling me under the restaurant floor," Mia continued. "There's a crawl space down there. The next thing I remember clearly is being in his car, then at the dock. He kept saying if I couldn't love him, then no one should have me." Detective Morgan's expression remained professional, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his pen. "What happened during the 3 years he kept you captive?" Mia's eyes glazed slightly. "At first, he told me Mom had too much debt and left, but I knew he was lying. Once he was watching the news in his phone, and I heard the report about my own disappearance. That's when I knew Mom was still looking for me." She paused, gathering strength. "He kept saying we were going to start a new life together far away, that he was saving money for new identities for us both. He complained about the restaurant not making enough money, that it was taking longer than he planned." Evelyn felt sick with rage and grief. "Did you ever suspect before all this that he had these feelings for you?" Mia nodded slowly. "He always paid special attention to me, even when I was younger. He'd bring me gifts, offer to teach me to drive, invite me to the restaurant to learn cooking. I thought he was just being nice because Dad was gone." Her voice broke. "I never imagined he would do something like this." "None of us did," Evelyn whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you." Detective Morgan cleared his throat. "Mia, your testimony is invaluable. We'll need formal statements from both of you, but what you've told us already gives us plenty to work with. Nathan Cross is in custody and won't be getting out any time soon." "What will happen to him?" Mia asked, a tremor in her voice. "He'll face multiple felony charges: kidnapping, false imprisonment, attempted murder, assault. Given the evidence and your testimony, he's looking at life in prison with no possibility of parole." "Good," Mia said simply. A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse poked her head in. "There are some people here asking to see Mia and Ms. Ross. They say they're from Crossroads Bistro?" Evelyn looked questioningly at Mia, who nodded. "It's okay. I want to see them." The nurse opened the door wider, and several members of the restaurant staff filed in tentatively. Marco led the group, followed by Michelle and two of the waitresses. They carried flowers and a small teddy bear. "We wanted to see how you both were doing," Marco said awkwardly, "and to say how sorry we are. None of us had any idea what was happening." Michelle stepped forward, her hands moving in a flurry of signs. One of the waitresses translated. "She says she knew something was wrong after she saw you in the food elevator this morning. She didn't tell Nathan, she was too afraid, but when your mother came back asking questions, she knew she had to speak up." Michelle signed again, more slowly. "She says she's sorry she didn't discover you sooner." Mia reached out her hand, and Michelle took it, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for helping me today," Mia said. "You saved my life." Marco cleared his throat. "We've closed the restaurant indefinitely. None of us can bear to work there knowing what happened. We're all looking for new jobs." He hesitated. "We also wanted you to know that we're cooperating fully with the police investigation." The hospital room fell silent as everyone processed the enormity of Nathan's betrayal, not just of Mia and Evelyn, but of everyone who had trusted him. "What happens now?" Evelyn asked, more to herself than anyone else. Dr. Patel, who had remained quietly in the background, stepped forward. "Physically, Mia will need time to recover her strength. We'd like to keep her here for at least a week for observation and to begin working with our psychiatric team. After that, outpatient therapy will be essential." Evelyn nodded, already mentally rearranging her life to accommodate Mia's recovery. "Whatever she needs, we'll make it happen." As the visitors filed out, promising to return in the coming days, Evelyn and Mia were left alone. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor and the distant sounds of the hospital. Mia nestled against her mother's shoulder, her breathing gradually slowing as exhaustion overtook her. "I never stopped believing you would find me," she murmured, her eyes drifting closed. "Even when he told me you'd stopped looking." "I never stopped," Evelyn whispered fiercely. "Not for one single day." As Mia slipped into sleep, Evelyn remained awake, watching the rise and fall of her daughter's chest, marveling at the miracle of having her back. The road ahead would be long and difficult. There would be nightmares and therapy sessions, court appearances, and painful memories to process. But they would face it together. After 3 years of searching, of following false leads and enduring crushing disappointments, Evelyn had finally found her daughter, because she refused to give up, because she trusted her instincts, and because she recognized her own daughter's hair in a bowl of soup. Some might call it coincidence or luck. Evelyn knew better. It was love, the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter, that had brought Mia home. And as the first light of dawn crept through the hospital window, Evelyn made a silent promise. Nothing would ever separate them again.